What does it all mean? Let me bring in Hans Von Spakovsky. He's the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative and a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Hans, great to have you with us, sir.
Vince, thanks for having me back.
Does the Justice Department usually send out notices that they'd like somebody to be imprisoned on a Saturday?
No. I worked at the Justice Department for a number of years, and unless the lawyers have a trial coming up on Monday, they don't work weekends. It is bizarre, and although the Justice Department is now saying, well, we weren't wanting him to be imprisoned before his appearance today, I think a lot of that was intimidating him and making him understand that when he's in prison, he's going to be under their control.
Yes. It seemed to me, my hunch was that it was a warning shot. You think that's the case?
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it was.
It's amazing. And so he testifies today, and I don't know how much you saw of this, but he did say that that Joe Biden was on all of these phone calls with Hunter Biden's business partners. He was there routinely. He was about the brand, and that the Burisma deal wouldn't have worked were it not for Joe's involvement. And that seems like how many more smoking guns do we need, Hans?
Well, if this was Donald Trump doing this, Joe Biden would already be in prison. I mean, that is how strong the evidence is on this. And look, that includes, by the way, something that, remember, Joe Biden bragged about the fact that he got this Ukrainian prosecutor fired by threatening to hold $1 billion in aid. And that's the prosecutor that was investigating Burisma,
yes,
the company that his son was on. He bragged about that. And according to Archer's testimony today, at least according to what James Comer is saying, is, Burisma specifically asked Joe Biden to take care of that for them. Hunter Biden to take care of that.
And it's funny. The left wants to impeach Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas because he's got a rich friend with no business before the court. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is straight up getting prosecutors fired in Ukraine while his son is on the board of Burisma, and Burisma is paying Hunter Biden to achieve that very outcome. Do we need a cleaner case of somebody who deserves to be impeached?
No, I don't think so. And look, add on top of that the fact that if there was nothing wrong with what they were doing and the income that Biden was receiving, why did they set up 20 different shell companies that basically laundered this money and paid it out to all these different members of the family? I mean, that's the kind of thing, like I said, that money launderers do. It's a classic mob operation to disguise income.
Maybe they just want to do
that. If it was all legit.
Maybe they just want to keep things interesting. It's boring to put it into one account.
Right.
Right. Okay, so you're saying it's money laundering. Yeah, it sure looks like it, the way it's constructed. So one other thing on Hunter Biden. Last week, you had this plea deal which fell apart in open court.
Right.
As a former member of the Justice Department, as a guy who's seen a lot of these cases, what stood out to you? This seemed pretty atypical.
Oh, it was bizarre. He was basically getting a get out of jail free card. They were recommending probation when the plea deal that we've now seen said that he hadn't paid between $1.2 and $1.6 million in taxes. Okay, those are not misdemeanors; those are felonies. Yet they charged him for misdemeanors and said that he ought to get out of jail. And by the way, everyone should know, in essence, he would get away free for this because the money that he owed was paid by his lawyer as a gift.
Yeah, they classified it as a loan, so he doesn't have to pay additional taxes on it. It is remarkable what's going on. Here's a question for you, a legal question. So Hunter was testifying to the judge last week. She asked a number of basic questions of him, as I guess you do in a plea hearing. And during that time, I presume you're not allowed to lie to the judge as you're speaking to her. And we're seeing a number of reports coming out now that Hunter Biden may have lied in a variety of ways to that judge, Mary Ellen Noreika. One of the ways in which he may have lied is she asked him if he was a member of the bar, if he was a lawyer, and he said yes, the District of Columbia and Connecticut. But apparently Hunter was suspended from practicing law in Connecticut for failing to pay fees 2 years ago. So if you're suspended by the state of Connecticut and then you tell a judge that you're a member of the Connecticut bar, are you lying?
Well, I think the judge could certainly see it that way because you're not fully informing her of the exact situation. But look, that whole plea deal, I mean, that's it's important that he be frank.
Yes.
But that whole plea deal was just an unbelievable way of trying to minimize the charges against Hunter Biden. Keep in mind, they only charged him for not paying 2 years worth of taxes. It was a lot of money. But they could have charged him with much more, except they allowed the statute of limitations to run. That is either incompetence of the worst kind, or it is intended. I cannot believe that the prosecutors allowed that to happen.
And the prosecution is being led by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss. The media keeps saying he's Trump appointed. I keep pointing out the only reason he has that job is because the two Delaware Democrat senators, Coons and Carper, chose him for the gig. I'm right about that, right? This was a Democrat selected guy.
No, that's right, and no one should pay any attention to that. What you have to do is look at his performance, and the performance so far has been atrocious. But by the way, on the statute of limitations, keep in mind that the IRS whistleblowers testified that there was a tolling agreement between Weiss and the lawyers for Biden. What that means is that Hunter Biden's lawyers had entered into an agreement saying, we agree to waive the running of the statute of limitations while we're negotiating over the case. When that was about to run out in November of last year, Hunter Biden's lawyers were willing to extend the tolling agreement. And what happened? Weiss and his office allowed them to expire. So that means they deliberately allowed the statute of limitations to run so that he couldn't be charged with even more years of evading paying taxes.
Wait, so Hunter's team was willing to endure more pain in this, and the Justice Department went easier on him? Does that normally happen where the prosecution side gives you the better case than the defense?
No, I've never heard of something like that happen. And I checked with several of my friends, including someone who's a former federal prosecutor, and he was astounded. He could not believe that the U.S. Attorney's Office allowed that tolling agreement to expire when Biden's lawyers were willing to extend it. That tells you, again, they were, in essence, trying to give Hunter Biden a get-out-of-jail-free card, the kind you get in a Monopoly game.
If you could be frank about this, you're being frank about everything, so thank you. How corrupt is the Justice Department these days? Because a lot of what we're watching kind of rests on the credibility of these prosecutors, and everything from the Trump case to the Biden cases. And I'm constantly having to tell people, I'm like, guys, the Justice Department has so devastated its own credibility that you cannot, in any reasonable world, reflexively believe they're telling you the truth. What do you think of an institution right now that you once worked for?
I think it has been politicized and corrupted to an extent that we've never seen before. And it's not just these lawyers in this case. I could cite to you numerous other cases where that's happening. I'll give you one quick example. Think to the pro-life activist, the father, who was arrested at gunpoint and charged in Philadelphia.
Mark Houck.
In what was, right, exactly. Well, a case that was so frivolous that even the local police and the Soros-supported DA in Philly thought there wasn't anything to it. They charged him with serious felonies. It took a jury almost no time at all to find him innocent. That was a politically motivated prosecution.
What a disaster. Let me ask you, I know one of your other areas of focus, importantly, is election law in our country. I see an Axios report this morning that President Biden's team has recently split with the Democrat Party's longtime lawyer, most people will know this name, Mark Elias, because of disagreements with Elias's legal strategies and strained personal relationships. According to several people familiar with the dispute, they say Elias argues the Democrats should be fighting on every possible front, filing a flurry of lawsuits and exerting public pressure through the media ahead of the next election. Biden's team, guided by lawyer Bob Bauer, is concerned that while Elias's approach may be emotionally satisfying and make for good headlines, it can backfire with the current conservative makeup of the judiciary. In other words, the Biden White House, at least is what they're telling Axios, thinks that Mark Elias is a big loser in front of the court. If he puts his cases, his election cases in front of the court, he's going to lose over and over and over again. What do you make of all of this? What do you think is really happening here?
Oh, I think that is the problem. Elias is making a huge amount of money, a lot of it not just in legal fees, but all the big liberal foundations are giving him lots and lots of money. He's the guy that keeps filing lawsuits all over the country challenging voter ID laws and all kinds of sensible requirements that states have. And while he does win some of them, he does lose a lot of them. And they are most angry at him because he took a case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court recently, a case out of Arizona called Branovich versus Arizona, in which he sued claiming it was discriminatory for the state of Arizona to ban ballot trafficking and to not count the ballots of people who don't vote in their precinct. And he lost. And the left was really upset about that because they didn't think he had a good case to start with, and he insisted on taking it to the Supreme Court.
It's amazing. Man, I kind of wish he was still their lawyer. Anyway, thank you very much. Hans Von Spakovsky, really appreciate your time and expertise as always, sir. Be well.